I saw your videos on IG and I really liked you, and I wanted to bring you on and talk about how have you been able to fund your passion projects?
So as a director, I feel like there's really only two jobs that you're supposed to do. One is leading your team, obviously, and two is financing your film. And so I was actually just having a talk with someone else who was trying to finance their film, and really like it comes down to three things, and that is by any means necessary. Four things, I can't count. I say that in one of my videos. That's why I'm a filmmaker, not a math maker. You really just have to do it by any means. So like for instance, for me, fundraising for my first short film that I was doing, it was actually for my senior thesis for Sacramento State where I graduated. One of the problems that all the students typically seem to have is funding their films. Like just seems to be like a hard thing for all directors to do. And so what I ended up doing was I got together a couple of filmmakers who I knew locally, industry people, indie people, got together a couple of film students, brought them all together in a single film, not a studio, but a film theater, rented out the theater and basically showed everyone else's films and then sold tickets, got it sponsored, and then used all the finances from that in order to create my first film.
That's really interesting. So you went out, got all the filmmakers, and you basically put them all up to do a screening and then use their own audience to bring people on. My man, I love that.
Yeah.
That's really smart.
Like, I think you have to be really creative. Once I figured out that like, oh, my goal is I have to be the one to make my films. And typically it came out of the thinking of me working so many years in film where I realized that, you know, when you get on set, there's probably 5 people in the grip department, you know, maybe have 3 people working sound, maybe 6 people in the camera department, possibly 3-4 producers, but there's only 1 director. And as I was talking with people who were in the industry, I kept finding out there's like 10-year veterans who started off wanting to direct, but they're still not there yet. And so what that told me is that no one else, if they had the money, is going to be like, here's all the money in the world to direct a movie. I'm not gonna direct it, I'm gonna give the money to you. So as soon as I applied that kind of knowledge, I was like, oh, okay, like you have to go out and make your own path.
Yeah, 100%. In my case, I started out making things in Cuba and we had no way of funding anything. So
I can't even imagine, bro. Like, we think it's hard here in America. Like, I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was tough, man. Like, if you think it's hard here in America, imagine being in a country where you don't have a car, you don't have a cell phone, you don't have the internet, you don't have even credit cards. You got nothing. All you have is like, how are you going to secure a camera and a little microphone, and who are you going to put in front of the camera? Everything else is like you just kind of make it up. So for me, I started doing like little things, and it was a period of about 4 to 5 years. I started, like when I was 15, I did the first few videos that were kind of all jumbled together. And then by the time I was 20, I remember I had one big project that I got paid a lot of money.
Doesn't it feel good, that first project though?
Dude, it was huge. It was like, imagine that you have gotten paid. I need to find a way to do the math because I got paid in the equivalent to USDs. But in Cuba, 1 USD at that time was 25 pesos. So it was almost like getting paid 100 grand to do one music video.
Oh, wow.
What I got paid to do this project.
Like, is that for the budget for the project, or is that you buy your...
For the budget of the project.
Got you.
So I had to use that amount to like pay everyone and like do everything. But I remember we were in the back of this room at the National Theater. We had just finished shooting like the main piece of the thing. And the artist that hired me to direct brings me in the back, and it was all cash. And it's like, it was the 50%, like we had the deposit and then this was like the payout. And it was like, bam, 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 bam. And inside I'm freaking out, but I'm keeping it cool, you know, like, oh, thank you. And inside I'm like, oh my God, this is so much money. And you're 100% right. Like, it's your responsibility to find a way to make it and find the money. So I really like that you went out and put films together to do a screening and get money. Now, I want to touch on something else, that another strategy that people do is, I'm going to go shoot weddings, make money, and then go make films. Or I'm going to go do commercials. Usually, I don't see it, like, out of 10 people that go and do that, maybe one ends up actually making films.
Yep.
Everyone else, 5 years later, they're still doing wedding videos or whatever type of videos. And hey, like, I did those videos. I did the commercials, I did the real estate videos, I did the weddings. You make your money however you have to make your money. Like, I'm nothing against that. But like, how do you think people can actually do the transition from that to actually making films?
It's all up in here. The way that I looked at it, you know, with my background, like I did a ton of stuff before I got into film. And so, you know, I started off as a college dropout.
Nice.
Terrible. But yeah, no, I started off
I was this close from dropping out. I didn't drop out because I had committed to certain people. But dude, my first year, I was all in. By year 2, I was like, I wanted to get out of here.
So yeah, same kind of experience in that regard. So I was a college dropout, and I was thinking like, oh, you know, maybe this, you know, school isn't for me. And so my first natural instinct was, oh, I'm good with people. So went into sales, and I got into television sales, I got into shoe sales, I got into, you know, heavy machinery, auctioneering sales, all the way up to car sales. Then I was making the most money I've ever made in my life.
Selling cars?
Selling cars, but I was still unhappy. And it was because the environment I was in wasn't conducive of something that was uplifting for my spirit. And so that's when I was like, oh, okay, like you have to do the thing that you're passionate about. Because money doesn't just make you happy.
How old were you at the time?
I was like 27, 28. Like I was a pretty late bloomer. But you know, that gave me the skills in order to go into film and know exactly what I want and be in this mentality of like, okay, this is what I'm going for. And how that applies to what your question was, I actually went back to school and then graduated magna cum laude with my bachelor's in film production. But what I think the separation is for the filmmakers who go and work these odd jobs in film that they're not passionate about, and with their goal of investing in their own film, I think it's the mentality of focusing too much on doing the thing that you're not interested in. For me, I was doing a bunch of odd jobs where I wasn't doing the thing I was wanting to do anyway. So I was like, okay, well, whatever job that I get, I'm already not doing the thing I'm passionate about, even if it's in film. I don't think anyone wants to be a PA, a production assistant, for their entire life. They usually want to move up, right? And so for me, when I was working those hard jobs where, you know, I'm waking up 3 o'clock in the morning, driving 2 hours to get to the Bay Area to set up tables and chairs before everyone else shows up, right? I was like, okay, I know this isn't what I want to do forever, but all of this, I'm just going to take it and reinvest into my own project. So I was always in the mentality of you have to, regardless of whatever your job is, still invest in your own projects. And I was lucky enough, let me save everyone out there, you know, 5 years of working in the film industry. No one is going to hand you a bucket load of money and be like, hey, direct the project that I want to make. I want you to make the project I want to make. That's not going to happen. You have to take initiative like you were doing and find that funding to make the project that you want, because no one is going to do that for you.
100%. And I think another myth that everyone has, especially coming out of film school or getting started, many people think that if you are a PA long enough, that leads to being a director. And that is so wrong. It doesn't work like that. The funny thing about directing, and this is very specific, like most people on the internet don't want to direct, and even if they think they want to direct, that's not really what they want. Once you get to do it, it's so hard that you're probably gonna quit. You have to be desperate and like you have to need it and be like so obsessed with it that you then have to go do it. But there is no ladder that you climb to become a director. It's almost like it's 1 or 0. It's like you're either a director or you're not. Being a PA for 5 years doesn't make you a director. Being a DP for 5 years doesn't make you a director. You have to decide, I'm going to direct, do whatever job you have to do. But outside of that hierarchy, you have to come up with a project that you're really passionate about and say, I'm going to make this no matter what. So in your case, I was watching one of your films, getting ready for the podcast, called The Talk. So tell me about that film. Like, you got a lot of views, like so many comments of people like saying very nice things about the film. Tell me about it, how that came about, and how were you able to make that happen?
Yeah, so basically, I actually used to shoot a podcast myself back in college and a little bit before that. And one day I was sitting with my co-host at the time, who was this Caucasian dude, and I just brought up on a topic. I was like, hey, you know, I was thinking about the time where my parents sat me down and gave me the talk. And I explained what that talk is. And what the talk for African-American families is, usually there comes a time in most African-American families where they sit their child down and explain to them how they'll face adversity throughout their entire life. And I was like, oh, do you have any kind of version of this for your family? And he was just kind of like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, we don't have a talk like this. And so as soon as I found that out, I was like, oh, okay, there's like a missing aspect of life here that's not really being shared to the majority of the population of the United States. And so basically, for my senior thesis for school, I was like, let me kind of give that aspect to people who don't know what that experience is. Let me share with other African-American people, with non-minority people, like that understanding of what it's like to be a fly on the wall during that intimate conversation.
What was the process from when you had the idea, then sitting down to actually make the script, and then finding a way to actually make the film? How long did it take, and how was that process for you? Too long, yeah. Now, what about finding the money and being able to like shoot and all that? Because like definitely had a good light package. You had good camera. Like you had camera moving around. Like you had the color grading was on point. So you did make it look really good, which I was really happy, because a lot of the times, especially student films, everyone is like, nah, let's just shoot it with an iPhone and blah blah. No, so you definitely didn't do that. Tell me about that process of putting everything together.
First, what I actually ended up doing was I put together my team. And so I actually got 3 local indie filmmakers, older gentlemen, to come and volunteer on the project. And
in what capacity?
so like helping out in any shape or form. And so because at the time I'd been on at least like, I think 2 indie sets, I was like, oh my God, this is like totally a team sport. Like you can't, like even if you have someone, for instance, in the camera department, you don't want them to do everything by themselves. And so I was very lucky enough to have one of my mentors out of the time was actually an Emmy award-winning editor. That I was like having come on. So they understand lighting more than I do. They understand storytelling way more than I did at that time. And so like I was very open with having this collaborative experience of surrounding myself with people who I felt were way more experienced than I was. And that's kind of still my goal today, is to always surround myself with people who I look up to, people who I think are better than me at some aspect or form. If I'm not being challenged, it's like, what are we doing here, right? But yeah, so we made the team. Then I got the funding for it through the means of, the film festival. The cameras at the time at the school that I was going to weren't up to par. And we had a very hard time like renting out cameras or having access to cameras. And like, I remember we had to plot out specific shoot days to when we could rent the cameras because we only had a limited amount of cameras, unfortunately. And so I invested ahead of time into buying my own Blackmagic Pocket 6K camera, which allowed us to shoot whenever that we needed to. So that alleviated that kind of issue that could come up that I foresaw. And then, yeah, it was just building the rest of the team. I made a presentation like all seniors did for our senior thesis class. And I was lucky enough to be one of the 10 that were chosen to direct their project. And yeah, and we just shot it from there. But I think halfway, we actually stopped because of COVID. Yeah, so we shot 50% of our production, then COVID happened, and then we couldn't finish. The teacher was like, hey guys, I'm sorry, like everyone has to go into, seclusion, quarantine. And so we had to end up shooting, these other smaller kinds of projects where it's like us shooting ourselves or family members were quarantined at home. And what ended up bringing us back was the George Floyd instance happened, and then Black Lives Matter protests started happening. And so I was approached by the families attached to our projects of being like, no, you have to finish it. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So you guys kind of like broke the lockdown and went and finished the project?
We waited until we had, the quarantine ended. It ended like very briefly for like a good 2 weeks, and then it went right back. But during that little window, yeah, we felt it was important to finish because it was that much of an important story to tell.
That's awesome. And I'm so happy you had like the balls. So let's say like, let's just go and do it and finish it. That's very interesting. So now that you were talking about that, pitching the movie, being selected, tell me about your experience going to film school, and like, would you recommend that to people, or would you say just like go out and make your film? What's your take on that?
So I feel very passionate about education in general. And I think that the thing that made me kind of like a success story in that way, because once again, I went from college dropout to graduating with honors, right? I think for every individual person is different. And you got to really kind of understand what you're going there for. Ultimately, if you were going to school, you were going there to network. Yes, it's cool to learn all the, how to utilize a camera and stuff. But as soon as you get onto a film set, you're not working with the camera. You're not running the sound. You're a PA. You're getting coffee. You're putting up those tables and chairs for lunches. You're building the tents. So it's a little bit less of that, but the classmates that you're working with are going to be the ones who can give you access to get onto sets. And so I would say that's the biggest takeaway, is that if you do go to a film school, I would highly recommend going to a metropolitan area. Now, that is not how you get your foot in the door in the industry. How you get your foot in the door in the industry is knowing someone who can help you get your foot in the door of the industry. You don't necessarily need to go to school for that, but if you go to a metropolitan area where a lot of films are being shot, you have a higher chance of someone in your class being able to help bring you onto set. And so that's kind of like how I handle that. And school usually teaches a lot of theory, which is really great if you want to direct. But as we discussed before, there's no direct pathway to become a director. You kind of just have to find a way to finance your film, and then boom, you could be nothing.
And then be directing right away. Yeah, that happens a lot. And that's why I'm just afraid with the whole school thing. In my case, I went to film school. I'm just afraid of young people going to film school when they cannot afford it, or thinking that they're going to get something that is not what they're going to receive at the end. Or if they want to be, for example, lots of people now, they want to be a videographer. Like, if you want to be a videographer, don't go to film school, bro. Just watch YouTube. Like, the amount of money you're going to like spend going to school, You can buy your first camera and lens combo and then watch a lot of videos and like learn how to do that, and then figure out how to like get people to pay you to shoot videos for their Instagram. That's a way faster route. Like in 3 months, you can be doing that without having to go through film school. Now, I did went to film school and it did help me. In my case, the biggest takeaways that I had was screenwriting. My screenwriting class was very solid. Like the professor was really good. I was clueless when it came to that part of the filmmaking aspects. So in your case, what's the main thing that you learned in school that you say, okay, it was worth it, to go and do that?
Yeah, honestly, I think the biggest takeaway I've ever had from school is little less about production and more about myself, which is I had to learn how to reverse engineer my learning style. And so like, why I'm always worried to give a blanket answer to a solution to everything is that just because we can be like extroverted and like talk to people and talk our way onto set and introduce ourselves to people in that way, there might be a lot of, introverted people who can't really do that. Like they're afraid to talk to people and they might need a school dynamic in order to kind of open up the gates for that. So I think it really just kind of depends. But for me, my best takeaway was learning how I learn and just being like, okay, well, I have to actually sit down, I have to be in the front of the class, I have to sit down, I have to make sure that I'm studying because I wasn't doing that, right? And yeah, and like just really kind of letting me know that I can do something if I focus on it, that I wasn't dumb, because I grew up thinking that I was just a dumb kid my entire life. And so,
was that because you dropped out of school before?
Yeah, so first I was kicked out of school. And this is not just like no, this was a community college. I was kicked out of a community college because my grades were so low. I was a 1.71 GPA. So that's under a C average.
Yeah, that's bad. Were you just bored, like not interested in school?
I could blame everyone else in the world, but honestly, it was me and not taking the time to figure out how to do things myself, ultimately. I was trying to wait for someone to come save me and help me out. And it wasn't until I was older where I, put my strengths on, let me figure out my own learning style. I'm a visual learner. So what tricks can I do in order to learn? So for instance, I also did music for several years. Okay. So I understood that if I made words or rhymes, that it would help me memorize things, right? When I was little, the first thing I wanted to be growing up was an artist. And so if I could associate a word with some kind of weird visual in my head, it would help me memorize it. And so that's why I think it's really important for people to figure out how they learn and then apply that to film. Because be honest with yourself, right? If you're not good at talking with people, maybe film school is a better route for you. But once again, make sure if you're spending tens of thousands of dollars to go, make sure you're going somewhere where it's going to actually be beneficial for you.
So what in your life happened that made you try again and say, oh, I got kicked out of community college, but I'm going to go back again and like study and like get this done?
Yeah, so it was two things. One was realizing that making money as a car salesman wasn't the thing that made me the happiest. So I could have lived the rest of my life being a car salesman and making all that money, but being miserable. And the second thing was I actually had a best friend of mine who passed away from testicular cancer when I was about 22. And that really made me kind of also reanalyze life, of being also like appreciate the time that we have, because you never know like how it's going to go. It made me really just be like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I have to do something.
Walk me through the process of you decide that you're going to go to school. I don't know how much it costs to go to school. Do you went to a state school that was like free or easy to get in, or like was it an expensive college?
It was so. I had to do college basically all over. All of my classes didn't count. So I had to go over to community college again, start from square one, retake all my classes, So it took a process of like another like 5 years of just dedication.
And were you still working and going to school, or did you stop working and then went to school?
I was working full time, going to school full time.
But I think that's the best thing you can do. Like in my case, that's what I had to do, because when I came to America, I came to America and I had $70. And
Wow.
I stayed with a friend that took me into his house, so I didn't have to pay rent. And he introduced me to people in school, and when they heard my story that I ran away from Cuba, went to Canada, the fact that I came to the border, the cop pulls a gun on me, pulled over, and at the end I was able to come into America legally as a refugee. When the people from the school heard that, and I was like, I came here to make movies, they were like, oh, we're gonna help you. So they helped me with the tuition. I only had to pay part of like some fees
awesome.
and things like that. I didn't have to pay the full tuition.
Yeah.
But after like 5-6 months, I moved into an apartment, and then I had to work full time to make money. And I was married at the time. I had to provide for my little family, and also I had to go to school and do a full load. But you know what, Adonis? It was really good, man, because like when I now that I'm older and I see myself in college, me compared to the other kids that had all the help from their parents, they didn't have to pay for anything. I smoked them. Like I went past them so quick, but also I was older. So probably that's why you were able to like come to school. You have to put together this project. You're like, I want to make all these people work for me. You had all the films and did the screening. Because I think as a man, as you get older, you have more grit. You know how things work. Like you're so much more prepared. And I think we can make better movies as we age. When you're 17, 18 and you're going to film school, what are you going to make a movie about?
You don't have any life experience.
Right? So I still think it might be better if you're watching this and you're young, you're like thinking about going to film school, maybe go do some jobs on random things. Spend a couple years. Like if you want to make movies, you need to have some kind of live experience that you can pull from. And also you need to learn how the real world works. Like how can you get people to pay you money for things? Like I think if you go from school, think about it, bro. Like you go to school since you're 5, all the way until you're 20, 21, 22 that you graduate. That is like almost 2 decades in a classroom. That is not how the real world works.
Yeah, right.
So the sooner you can start getting involved in how the real world works, because I'm pretty sure that the skills that you learn selling cars, tell me about that. How did selling cars help you become a better filmmaker?
Funny thing, there is, for anyone who's a car salesman out there, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. There's something called the point. And what the point is, all car dealers and sales usually have this, but it is a spot on the car lot where all the car salespeople will stand and call cars. And what's supposed to happen is you see a car as it's off in the distance. Someone will be like, name like a black, whatever, and that just means black car, right? Red, that means the red car. Whoever calls it first gets to claim that car. And then if it pulls in, that means that you get to help the person there. And so for me, what that taught me was I was always on that point, calling while everyone else was messing around, telling jokes, cracking stuff, my eyes were locked in. Or, you know, sometimes I would be, you know, distracting them where I'd have them turn their backs and be deep in conversation while my eyes are still right over here. They're like, oh yeah, that's cool, red. But yeah, like that life isn't fair. Right? All those people who are car salesmen were there for one reason or other, whether they loved it or because of life circumstances, what have you. But life isn't fair in that you aren't rewarded for anything for free. Like you have to go out there and get it. And so I think, you know, credit to what you were saying, by getting older, we understand a little bit more that life after high school is a continuation of high school. Right? And we care a lot less about what people think about us, which can make us a lot more shameless and just focus on whatever target that we have. And so once you decide your target is film, then there's really nothing stopping you. And so I think that you can do that when you're young. I don't think there's anything stopping you outside of yourself. And so really age is just you getting over the self-doubts of achieving what your goal is.
That's really cool. Now, what's the next like couple steps? Like, what do you want to accomplish, and how are you going to tackle that and go after that, putting your eyes on what you want and going to make it happen?
Yeah, my goal has always been to be a feature film director. And that's what I'm going for, and that's what I'm going to achieve. It's just going to take some time, patience.
Yeah. Do you have any stories that you're passionate about that you want to get into?
Oh yeah, I have a ton. So right now, the next project that I'm working on is we were awarded a grant through, 2 grants through Sacramento City, one in the shape of a $10,000 grant from the city, another one in the shape of a matching grant donation. And I think we're about 16,000 from that, so 26,000 total for the short film that is inspired by the life of Kobe Bryant when he first moved.
Yeah, I saw your pitch for that one. So tell me about the grant. I'm so happy that you're bringing that up, because I'm working on another film with another filmmaker, Tay. We're gonna have her here on the podcast pretty soon, and her film also got funded through a grant. I have never done a grant myself, so tell me about that process. How does that work?
Basically, there's going to be like different websites that you can look up, usually through your film commission office. They might post the grants there. But basically, you know, you can apply for these when they're open. They take the shape and form of however much the grant awards you. So it can be anything as low as like $500 all the way up to like tens of thousands of dollars. Once again, it just kind of depends on the city. And yeah, and you will need stuff. They usually want to see how prepared you are. They want to know how much funding do you already have. And so for this project that I was doing, we were like 75% already funded, and it was from my own money in my own pocket.
From the budget that you needed to complete the film?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it was from my own money in my own pocket that I had the funding to shoot it anyway, then applied to the grant, which gave me a higher percentage of making it, because they're like, what they really care about is it being completed. So then that they can show this evidence to whoever is supporting the grant, usually the city, that, hey, there's creators out here who need these grants in order to create a positive influence in the city that we're in.
So in this case, you apply for the grant, you go on the website, you see this. What did they specifically ask for you to put together to send those materials in?
Your shoot days, who's involved, if those people, who's involved who lives within the city that you're in, you know, the actual scripts, the treatment, you know, your pitch deck, like literally any kind of files that you have, your resume, examples of your work. But every grant is different. And it really just kind of depends on who is awarding the grants. Because just because the grant that I got was from the city doesn't mean that all grants are going to be from the city. Some come from like, you know, nonprofit organizations who have their own things that you have to do. So like, for instance, for the second grant that we got, for them, the only stipulation that they had was that they match funds, meaning that if someone donated $100, we would be awarded $200.
So they doubled the... Oh wow, that's pretty impressive. You need to send me that website, man.
Right? It's only for people in Sacramento, but
I'm gonna move in with you.
Fair. But yeah, so like every grant kind of has like its own stipulations and stuff, so it really just kind of depends. But for the city ones, at least it seems like there's that commonality of how many jobs are you creating for people who live here? Because then they have to go to their higher ups, the city, and be like, hey, we created X amount of jobs through this grant that was awarded to us. So you should continue this grant.
Yeah, no, that sounds pretty good. And I'm not very involved with those things. I'm trying to play more of the, like the traditional Hollywood, like finding a way to pitch to Netflix or to Amazon and like try to get movies made that way. But I think grants, now I'm seeing it, like you're the second person up close that I know that is getting money to make a film. So I think I need to pay more attention to that and learn more about it. For me, because I come from a communist country, and that was the only way you could make films. So we weren't even allowed to create production companies. So for you to make a film, you had to go through the Film Institute, and the Film Institute was connected directly to the Communist Party. So everything was like one single line, and that's the only way you could make a film. This idea of applying for grants all the time and all of that, I have kind of like a bad feeling about it, but I need to change that in my head and go after those grants to make films here, because there's so many possibilities for filmmakers of all kinds. In your case, the film with Kobe Bryant, are you guys getting the grant because it's related to anything like from your other film with African Americans, with that situation in the city, or is it only because it's made in the city regardless of who's making it?
They were more so concerned about like, how is this going to affect the community? How many jobs are being created? Is it telling a diverse story more so than the actual content of the story? So the inspired by story that we pitched them, I think like had less to do with the award of the grant and more being like, well, is this a story that helps out the people immediately here? At least for that specific grant. The other grant, they didn't care about that.
About nothing. So in your case, what have you seen is the difference between making movies in Sacramento and the way that things are made here in Hollywood, and like, what's your take on that?
Oh man, you guys, it's a whole different world out here. So first of all, most of the stuff shot up in Northern California are commercials, while most of the stuff shot over here, probably TV commercials and feature films. And so in Northern California, you know, I know how it is now. I don't know exactly how it was before COVID. But you know, we were probably averaging, as far as like major productions, you know, it got as low as like maybe 5 a year. It's probably changed now that, you know, COVID has died down, and that helped out a lot. But yeah, for the most part, the biggest thing I would say is the content. Up in Northern California, we mostly have like tech companies and businesses, and those are the ones who are supplying the jobs. There's also, we have unions up there, but it's nothing compared. I just put my hand in my own water. It's not, I'm so hot. I just had to cool myself down. While down here in, you know, Hollywood in Southern California, you guys have unions that are, not that they're more organized, is that more people are in these unions. And so you guys have, you know, more regulations because you're working on more consistent work through television and feature films, while with commercials, you don't necessarily need to be unionized. But I still support unions. Like, I'm not trying to get in trouble with the unions. I love you guys.
So tell me about your experience working with actors. You were with a kid in your film, The Talk. Mm-hmm. And I'm just curious. I'm always interested in other directors, how they think about working with actors, and especially how do you find your actors?
So up in Sacramento, we have like a website that we can go to. Sometimes we'll get referrals. You know, we'll have the whole open casting call process where you could sit behind a table and have people come and you know, try out for the role that they're going for. So it's a variety of things. No one specific route. I think by keeping your options open, that you really just want to try to get the best talent that you can for that role. So I think being open is really what's important.
So in your case, how are you thinking about moving towards making a feature? So your next project is going to be another short, and you're getting, from what you said, about $26K from the grants, and then you might have some other money on the side. Maybe you could do another screening and get some more money.
Hey.
So why would you put that amount into a short instead of taking that amount and going after a feature? I
think as a filmmaker, you always want to be kind of, your next project, you want to be bigger and better, bigger and better. And I think that I don't want to compromise the storytelling elements, meaning that, yeah, could I shoot a feature film with $26,000? Absolutely. I probably won't be to the quality that I want it to be, meaning that we won't have all the equipment that we need. We probably won't have all the personnel that we need. We probably won't have, you know, all the talented people that we want to bring on to the project. And so, like, I don't want to half-step anything. I want to make sure that I'm giving everything my all, because they say that, you know, making a film is like, for a director, is like having a baby, right? It's like the thing that you nourish and that you protect and that you're passionate about. So I think that I would compromise too many aspects of the vision if I didn't have the budget to make it the right way. Now, that doesn't mean I need $1 bazillion, although that would be nice. Yeah, I just don't want to compromise the vision. And ultimately, you know, every single project that you're showing is a display of you as a filmmaker, as a director, you know, filmmaker in general. So you want to make sure that everything is that proper representation for you, because yeah, they're going to make judgments. It's going to be how you get, you know, it's our resume. It's how you get your next job, right? And so if you put out something that you half-ass, can you curse? I don't.
Yeah, you can curse.
Okay, cool. Damn it, fuck, shit.
Not that much.
Oh, yeah. If you put the floodgates wide open.
Yeah, no, you can curse. Like it doesn't matter. It's just YouTube.
Yeah, but. But if you put out something that you half-ass, then people are going to think of you as a half-ass director, and that's not me.
How does your family feels about you making movies and trying to do all of this?
The ones that don't live with me think it's great.
They think it's great?
They think it's great, yeah. No, it's funny because, like, my dad isn't on social media or anything. He doesn't follow me or anything. So he hears about all the videos and stuff and the projects that I post through, like, our cousins and stuff from the Dominican Republic and from, like, New York. And they're like, look at Adonis, look at Adonis. And then he's like, oh, okay, he's doing something.
How do you think your life has changed since you decided to go full on for film? Like, what does that really look like on a day-to-day basis? Because you still have to make money, you still have to work. How does that affect your life as a whole? You know, like dating, I don't know if you're married or not, or like that side.
Ladies, I'm still single.
So how does that affect, like, when you talk to a girl at a bar or something like that, and they ask, what do you do? And when you get into that conversation, how does that comes to play for you?
I'm a lot more shy about it. Like, I just avoid it completely, because yeah, as soon as you tell some certain people, like, that opens up a different kind of avenue. But yeah, no, I don't know. I just like it. I think I'm the most proud of myself that I've ever been in my life, because I'm doing the thing that I love, and that I found a way to continue having that creativity. And something that, you know, we were talking earlier off camera about was, you know, that there's a lot of people who get into work where, you know, they're producers, or there might even be directors, but they're not working on the project that they're passionate about. And so what ends up happening with them is that they get into this vicious cycle of, you know, just paying the, I want to say the muses, but it's not artistic, but paying, you know, the big wigs, but not getting the emotional content that they're searching for, because they're not being creative. And so when people get like that, then it's just like they give up on their passions. And so I think that with me understanding the same way that you understand, that we have to take the time to invest into our own projects, so then that not only are we making stuff that we're proud about, but we're getting that little creative muse going, that's really how you make yourself proud of your life.
Yeah, for sure. I was talking to a friend yesterday, my friend Reed, he's a writer and director too, and we went to shoot some interviews for his feature doc that he's working on. And he asked me something super interesting. He said, are you afraid you're not gonna make it? Like, are you ever afraid, you know, that you're not gonna make it? How do you feel about that? No. You're not afraid you're not gonna make it? I'm not afraid.
I am afraid that I wouldn't try.
Exactly, and that's what I told him. I was like, man, you know, I'm so happy that I'm in the journey, I'm in the path. And that sounds cheesy as fuck, but it's so true. Like, if you are only happy whether or not you make this big movie and make all these millions of dollars and you become famous and all that, if that is the only thing that is going to bring you happiness, then everything else is going to be terrible. So it's not worth it. I think I feel the same as you, that I'm the happiest I think that I've ever been with my life, and I'm proud of myself, you know, because I'm still trying, you know, and I'm going to always keep trying. So that's really interesting that you think about it that way too.
I like to think about the, you know, little 10-year-old, 8-year-old me, of being like, what if he was in this room right now? Like, what would he say to you? I mean, we're sitting here, if I could take a minute, sitting here, got 3 cameras on us, with your brother over there in front of what looks like a portable DJ booth, while you're sitting in a suit in front of this beautiful background here I see the LA skyline and Hollywood right there below us. I think your little you would be proud of you, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, little me wouldn't even think this is even possible, man. Like
coming all the way from Cuba.
Yeah, that was a lot. I'm still surprised. Like I still drive around, and I've been in America for about 10 years. I've been in LA for about 3 years, but it's still fucking surreal. Like, to me, just the fact that we are here, and it's not the thing of like making more money or like having a nice car, living in a nice place. To me, it's like I'm in the place where movies are made. Bro, like, we make movies here.
We make movies here.
Like, yeah. That to me is so crazy. Like, Netflix is right there.
Right there.
Like, Paramount,
we can spit on it.
It's right there. Like, the ArcLight Cinema is right there. Like, all around here, like, the movies are made. The other day, I was watching this documentary on Netflix called The Movies That Made Us. I don't know if you have seen it, where they show you this famous horror movie called Halloween. Do you know that film with Michael Myers? Basically the story of like how that movie got made. They had no freaking idea what they were doing. Like, it was a random ideas. This dude, it was John Carpenter was the director. It was like his 2nd or 3rd feature film. He had never done anything like before. Their budget was $300K, and that for them was a lot of money, but still they didn't have enough money to do things. Everything was like glued together with like, everything was like a nightmare. And that happened right here, man. It's like, they were just kids, you know, like trying to make whatever movie, and I feel like we get to experience the same. So that's why when I saw you on Instagram and you were talking about making movies and stuff, I reached out to you because I'm so excited to see other people excited about making movies, and I think that's the thing I like the most, like being excited about movies. So like, what movies are you crazy about right now? Like, what have you watched that makes you like be
excited? Man, there's too many movies. Oh, you're asking a filmmaker what movies he likes. Okay.
From the last, like, it's Oscar season, yeah. Like from the top movies right now, what's the one that you're like, damn?
I got a champion, Jordan Peele.
Okay,
with all of his movies.
Nope.
Like, Nope was great.
Haven't seen that one yet.
You haven't? Oh man, it is. Well, now I don't want to ruin it for you. But it's a good movie. It starts off being something and then ends up being something else. Which
okay, I need to check it out.
I always love his movies in that way. And then, of course, you know, just being a diverse director, because like still now it is even still hard to be seen as that. You know, I think Will Smith recently was like the 4th African-American who won Best Actor out of all of, you know, the Oscars. And I think 2 of those were Denzel Washington, so it was really only about 3.
Denzel is like hard to beat.
Yeah,
the other one is Jamie Foxx, because I was watching the other day his speech. So you have Will Smith, Denzel, Jamie Foxx. Who's the other one? Sydney?
I think so.
I think Sydney Poitier.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, so like this, we're still breaking through, you know, that glass ceiling. So like, whenever that I'm on set, sometimes you might catch me just kind of like standing by myself, just smiling. And if you were to ask me what I'm thinking about, it'd probably be like, isn't this cool? We get to be like kids for a living. Like I'm just playing with all my friends.
The movie that got me like recently, we watched it over Christmas, Avatar 2. I didn't expect it that I was gonna like it, to be honest. Like, I went to the theater to watch it and I was like, let's see what happens. I was really captivated by the story.
I thought it was really good too. I was surprised that some people didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, so far everyone, like I went to see it with my brother, like the whole family, we went to watch it. Like even my kids, like my son Abel is 8 and my daughter is 5. My daughter fell asleep kind of halfway through, but my son watched the whole thing and it was like almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
And he was still interested. That movie like floored me. Like I was, because seeing all of these pieces come together, and the combination of like the script being so solid, the acting, even though it's through the CGI, the acting came across, like the action sequences, the cinematography, how they were able to follow all of these subplots and still make everything kind of come together. And we watched it at a 4DX theater. I don't know if you have,
Yes.
Have you experienced that?
They are so awesome.
Dude, that was the first time ever that I had like actually been able to experience it.
What a movie to start off with. Like,
yeah, I was talking to a friend the other day and we were talking about Avatar, and his favorite of the runners right now for the Academy is Maverick.
so good.
Yeah, I just watched Maverick like with my brother the other day and it's amazing. But dude, Avatar in 4DX,
I can only imagine because it's had to utilize those water scenes really well. Not many movies that I've done with 4DX had water, so that's cool. You know what? I think my top running movie for the Oscars is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah. Like that one really was a weird movie that still made me cry.
Yes, 100%. I went to watch it twice at the theater because the first time I was just almost like not overwhelmed, but I was so stimulated and I enjoyed it so much, but it was like a trip. I came out of the theater like, what just happened? Holy smoke, what a good film. And then my second viewing, which was like 2 days later, was to actually be able to like with a director's eye to like see it and see the little tricks and like in the narrative sense of like how they're able to put this piece with this piece. And that was such a good film. How do you feel like when you watch a film like that? What do you feel?
Yeah, I think I have this unique thing where I can turn off my brain when watching a film. And I say that to say so I can just sit down and just enjoy the story that the filmmaker has laid out before me. I can totally do the thing where I'm like being super critical and being like, okay, this is this aspect of the shot. They probably use this focal length. Okay, you have your subject walking towards camera, blah, blah, blah. But I try not to do like you until a second viewing or something so I can just sit down and enjoy a story. And so I think whenever I see any story that just really catches me off guard, those are the ones that I like really connect with, because I'm like, I'm totally just, once again, just a kid in a candy shop, right? I'm just like, oh my God, look at this beautiful thing in front of me. And so like something I really do also appreciate about Everything Everywhere All at Once is the directors, the Daniels, was that they came from a background of doing music videos. And then eventually, you know, did the majority of the special effects on that film themselves or through like calling for favors of other people. And so like, I think that's, if there's anything that successful directors kind of have in common, which I see, you know, you have in common with them, is like that gumption of being like, just figuring out how you're going to get your project made, whether that be calling favors, whether that be, you know, a grant, whether that be escaping from a country where you can't freaking make movies. Like it takes like you getting off of your ass and just going out there and doing the thing that you're passionate about and not having any excuses.
Yeah. How do you feel about people that don't seem to get that, or they're always either blaming someone else because why they can't make this, or like waiting for someone to help them? What would you say to those people?
Yeah, no one's coming. No one is coming. That you have to, you're going to do the job that you don't like. If you're going to do the job that you don't like and you have to do it regardless, why not still save for the goal in mind that you have? I think that a lot of people, what ends up happening, my theory, is that eventually if you work in the film industry long enough, you can make good money and you'll get to a place where you can be okay. And you'll have your house, you'll have your car, you'll have your kids, you'll have, your significant other, and you'll get complacent. And it's very easy to just be like, okay, I'm gonna settle down. I'll get to my passion project eventually, but I'm just gonna settle down now. And I think that sneaks up on people and attacks them because you're never going to get to your project. Like, they don't realize that what it really takes is you going out there and just doing it. And so I think, that's kind of just what it takes. You going out there, man. And so I think you understand that. The Daniels understand that. I understand that. And so to anyone out there who is like, what do I have to have in order to do that, is like, you have to do it. How do I do it? You do it. What's the secret to do it? You go and do it.
Thank you so much, Adonis, for coming on the show. Check out this episode with my friend Peter Hurley. He's the top photographer in the world, and he's gonna show you a lot of nice tricks and insight in how to take the best headshots in the world. And again, if you like this episode, send it to a friend, share it with someone, and we'll see you on the next one.